Wasting my life being on the wrong path. That quote stopped me in my tracks. Imagine this. You're having a dinner and you've invited all your closest friends and you want to have that deep, meaningful conversations. Have you ever been in one of those? And there'll be that one sentence that will open up everybody to share their lived experiences. That quote was that for me. It was taken from the book Meditations of a Former Statue, a novel, a memoir, an obsession. And this week's guest is none other than the author itself, Angela Gabriela Warren. Let me tell you, I wanted to know the woman behind these amazing quotes because this was just one of those quotes in that book. And she unpacked her lived experiences. She shared and opened up about her heritage, her career, and so many rich stories that I was practically hanging on her lip for more. Gabriela has lived a very interesting life, but more than that, she comes from an amazing heritage. And sometimes being of different cultures, it can have such a deep impact on us that we don't even realize it until we have to write something like a book. And she had to open up and share these stories. So listening to all the different ways that made this book come alive, it was amazing to listen to. I really hope that you found as much inspiration as I did by just sitting down and listening to the person behind the book. And I would be super interested to know what you thought about it towards the end. And I do apologize. There were bits and pieces where the audio cut off on my end, but that doesn't take away her story. Enjoy this week's episode.
Okay. So I was thinking about something, and I think this is a really nice way to segue into the podcast. You're speaking about, AI and what that means. And then there's a sentence you actually create, and I'm reading it in the book right now. It goes, Eleanor replied, this was her reply, when she was asked, what is it that you fear? And I liked what you said. It was wasting my life being on the wrong path. And I thought that stuck out because I do ask myself a lot about that. Was that at the beginning of your path?
I think it was when the path diverged.
So can you take me back to that? So people don't know you, so I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
I did. I spent...
So your heritage. Let's start with that because that gives a lot of context around everything we're going to speak about.
My father came from India. He settled in the UK in the 1950s. He met my mother.
Which part of India?
From Bengal.
Okay.
And my mother came from southern Italy, and they settled here. She settled here in the 50s. They met and married in 1960, which, interracial marriages were rare then, and there was a lot of hostility in the 1960s in the UK. So my sister and I were born, clearly not fitting into any racial stereotype. We didn't quite fit into the Asian. People could see there was some Asian sort of heritage with us. And my mother would say that, she was Caucasian and, blonde and dark-haired with some blonde streaks from the Italian sun. And I inherited her mad hair, by the way. My sister's got the glossy Indian hair, but I've got the mad Italian hair. But she would say that, she would walk outside a supermarket, and if we called her name, said Ma, people would turn and look shocked because of the difference in colours of our skin tone. And it was my mother was like, oh my God, people really, but that was at the time. Now people don't look twice, But it was almost as though we were growing up in a kind of psychic war zone, not quite sure where we fit in. And I think I remember spending a lot of my childhood trying to fit in and only realized later in life that I was never meant to.
I find it very interesting, the word trying to fit in. We still have that conversations today. At least I have them quite often with when people ask me, where are you from and what do you do? And you just go, okay, here we go with that question,
Yes.
And you said something very interesting with that, which I have not heard yet, psychological warfare. That's a heavy word.
Yes.
Why do you call it that?
you can sense them. Because any sensitive person, sort of empathetic person, you'd be able to pick up where there's some hostility and some suspicion from someone. If you're nearby at the time, especially because we didn't. So it felt like the best armor was to be charming and to speak well and that sort of relaxed people.